Luang Por began by asking where you'd come from today, and hearing that you're an hour and 15 minutes away, he just said that this day and age is a day and age, or an age of change. Right? There's a lot of technological, material change going on in the world, and one of the results of this is that we can travel more conveniently these days, whether we're coming from our homes to a monastery or travelling between countries. Say nowadays it's only a 8.5 hour flight to fly from Bangkok to Melbourne. In the old days, if you wanted to travel from Thailand to Australia, it would take maybe at least a month in a ship. Or if you wanted to travel to Europe, the UK, it might take 3 months. So there's a lot of change going on in the world, and some of it is good, but it also has maybe some danger hidden in it, or side effects that can be harmful. All the change, the development that is coming into the world, that comes up in the world, it arises from desire, people's desire. If people didn't have any desires, there'd be no motivation at all to develop or progress in the world, to change the world. But we also have to see and learn that desire can have its harmful side, its disadvantages. So as Buddhist practitioners, we have to be circumspect and careful and learn how to put limits on desire. All forms of, say, material improvement in the world, they bring all kinds of benefits, but we have to remember they can have negative effects as well. Or on a more individual level, you could say just something like food. We have to go out to get food, to eat food in this world, in our lives. You could say food is very helpful, useful for our bodies to grow, to be healthy and strong. But something simple like food can also have its harmful side. If we use the wrong food, or if we eat too much food, it can give us trouble, problems. Or on a larger scale, the development of the world, the material world, the use of all the natural resources in the world. These need to be regulated and used wisely, because resources, all the different resources we depend on, they can gradually run out. When they run out, people tend to start to struggle and fight over them. For someone with wisdom, they might be able to find alternative methods. Say, in the case of natural resources, when they run out, might be able to use their wisdom to develop something like solar energy as an alternative to the other kind of fuels we use. Solar energy doesn't change much because it's always there, the sun is there, and it doesn't really get used up because every day the sunshine comes back. That's different from some of the other natural resources which do gradually get used up. Like in Thailand, you can see nowadays the results of all the quarrying for different kinds of rock and minerals. In some areas a whole mountain has disappeared because they just kept cutting and quarrying into it. Or much of the forest has been cut down. The forest has gone, the trees have gone, they've been all used up. Forests can be regenerated with care, but it's difficult. So our life as human beings, it involves development, adjusting the world around us and our place in the world. We have to constantly be adjusting. But we have to learn how to do this well, develop and adjust in a good way. And remember that ultimately material things can never give us permanent happiness. So this is why we come to develop our minds on the internal level, because that's where we can experience internal happiness. And this is just as much a part of nature as the external material world. In all aspects of nature, there's always benefit and harm close together. in our daily life we use energy sources like, say, electricity, and this now you could say is something very necessary for us and has many uses. But even electricity can be used in the wrong way. It can cause all kinds of danger and destruction if we're not careful. So we have to learn and understand how to use it to avoid those dangerous effects, those harmful effects. The Buddha taught us to practice to understand our minds so that we can learn to use our minds without harm, without danger. There's a famous old saying that the Buddha said, never take the fire from inside your house out of your house, or bring fires from outside your house into your house. And this is a simile referring to our minds. The Buddha advised us not to display our internal fires, meaning our kilesa, greed, anger, delusion, not to display them outwardly, not to take them out of our house, as it were. In those days, ascetics might worship fire, so the Buddha would give teachings where he compared these internal defilements of greed, anger and delusion to like a fire in their effects, how they affect our minds. They heat the mind up, burn and destroy the goodness of the mind. So he said we must learn how to protect ourselves from this fire, from this danger. Just like the wood heater in this room, it needs to be enclosed to stop the fire inside from becoming dangerous and spreading around the house. So practice is about how to learn to deal with these things. It involves doing good, but it also involves learning how to deal with that which is bad or the unwholesome in a skillful way, in the right way. The Buddha said when these internal fires do begin to come up, the greed, the anger, delusion come up, we have to begin with the practice of giving up, letting go and self-sacrifice, or in the first level, in first stages of practice we call dana. This is the very beginning of our practice, generosity and giving up. Anger and hatred arises from the worldly dhammas, loka dhammas, when we are affected by criticism, loss and so on. And a very good antidote to this is the offering of dana, not just material dana but what we call abhaya dana, the giving of forgiveness and the giving of a sense of safety to others. They feel at ease. When we live with children, say, who don't yet know how to live in the world skillfully, and they're always displaying their moods of excitement, anger, sadness and so on, we can reflect, they don't know any better, and it's easy to let go, to forgive them, because we know they're just kids. So we might have to try to do that more determinedly with adults. We have to learn how to deal with things, to adapt and develop our minds. We have to learn how to train our minds. It's just like using wood from the forest. If you want to use wood to build a house or make furniture, you can't just take raw wood from a tree. You have to cut it, shape it, turn it, sand it, do many things to it before it's usable. And our minds need to be worked and trained in that way. We have to know how to go against the grain of our tendencies and our habits, to really work with our minds, train them like you have to work with wood. The way we do this is by using what we call Dhamma Vichaya, which means the ability to wisely investigate truth. This is one of the 7 factors of enlightenment, the Bojjhanga, and it performs the duty of actually changing our mind. This is what leads on to realization. Dhamma Vichaya involves reflecting on truth, investigating truth, just like a scientist studies the truth of different things in the world to find out what they're composed of, to find out what chemical compounds and elements make up a certain substance. This is the way we investigate our minds. The scientists might say study food, and they analyze food and divide it into different groups of the contents of food, say like protein, fat, trace elements, and so on, vitamins and so on. We know that through investigation. The scientist knows that through investigating food. So in our practice we learn to investigate ourselves, our minds, and we learn how to restrain our moods and our thoughts and emotions so that we don't run into trouble. Just like the driver of a car needs to have a brake, a restraining force to avoid danger and obstacles, or say running into other drivers, maybe drunken drivers on the road or so on. We cannot just follow our own impulses, reactions and moods all the time, because some of them bring us to harm, bring us to suffering. Or again, like food, some food is bitter, some is sour, some is savoury, some is sweet. We get to know food, we get to know how to use it wisely through investigating it, becoming experienced with it, and then we can use it without bringing us harm. In our minds we have to know how to distinguish between wholesome and unwholesome moods and thoughts. And the unwholesome moods we have to learn how to give them up, not to act on them, to let them condition our speech or our actions. Someone in society who can control their mind in this way, they know that which is right and that which is wrong, what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. Just as the old saying says, through water we know fish, or through time we get to know ourselves. Like in the short term, some people are able to restrain and control their minds. Like you see in society, perhaps people in positions of responsibility, they learn how to be restrained in public on the surface. But this is a bit like a rock. When you put a rock on grass, it can squash the grass down and the grass seems to stop growing. But when you lift the rock off the grass will spring up again and come up just as it was before. This is how, where one is just doing it on a superficial level, restraining the mind, it does some good, but it's still just short term, and the root causes of our suffering are still there, the greed, hatred and delusion. So we have to practice in the long term to root out these things. We have to learn how to contemplate, how to let go through wisdom. We have to know how to use this mind, how to use our mind when we are using our eyes to have mindfulness and wisdom, when we use our ears to have mindfulness and wisdom. We have to learn how to understand how our emotions, our reactions arise with every sense contact that we have. If we study this, then we understand nature with wisdom and mindfulness. We become very circumspect. We know how to develop ourselves in the world in the right way, the correct way, without danger. If we use this circumspection and carefulness, this is how we can develop ourselves. And one who has developed themselves like this, they know how to perform their duty in society in the most full way, the most complete way, but without any anger or blemish to their minds. This is because they understand what are mental defilements, and they understand their true nature. They know that they're just really things to be discarded like rubbish. They don't get deluded by greed, hatred, delusion. They don't suffer with it, and they know how to relate to other people in the correct way because they're not acting in a defiled way. So they start to treat people as relatives, friends, and use metta, kindness and compassion. They don't act out of greed or selfish motives. One who practices like this, they see the common humanity in all people. They see the impermanent nature of the world, and they're not deluded by that. They know that all of us are subject to old age, sickness and death. They see that this is just the normal way of conditioned things. Trees grow up and eventually they start to die and then they fall over. people grow up and then they start to get aches and pains and get ill. One with this understanding, they see all this as just normal, the true way of things. It's just the truth teaching us. When we get an ache and pain, somebody who knows how to practice like this, they just see this as a teaching, a reminder that all things go to cessation and ending. This body, this mind and all of the world, they come from nature and the elements and they return to that. Nothing belongs to us. One who sees this truth completely from the beginning right through to the end, then they'll see the universal characteristics of existence, the impermanent, unsatisfactory and selfless nature of all things. They see the world in its true light. They know that material things, the material side of this world, is impermanent. They might get some convenience and comfort from the material things, but they know that that's actually a source of attachment. They see the danger there. They see that this can lead people to forget themselves and become heedless and get caught into suffering. So we need to be one who knows how to use this mind, to use mindfulness and wisdom to contemplate these truths.